Months after a deadly Medford apartment fire, much of what happened that night remains a mystery.
In the dark, early morning hours of November 2nd, a fire broke out at Cedar Tree Apartments on Barnett Road in East Medford. One little girl died. Several others went to the hospital, but firefighters couldn't determine what started the fire. Tonight, we're getting a first look at a 77-page document revealing some strange, never reported details from that night. From what neighbors say they saw to questions fire investigators say are unanswered. It's a story you'll only see on NBC5 News. Amanda Rose reports.
It's eerily quiet here today as the residents of this section of the Cedar Tree apartment complex have all packed up their things and moved away. As for what caused the building to go up in flames, there's a very frightening possibility. The fire was started intentionally, and as for who did it, we may never know.
Time goes on and we try to heal the best we can.
4 months later, and this is what's left. Caution tape, charred wood, and empty rooms.
No one's out of this one?
No, I'm getting them out right now.
Yeah, we need them all out right now.
But in the early morning hours of November 2nd of last year, first responders filled the East Medford apartment complex.
Up this way, bud.
Firefighters rescued several children trapped in the burning building.
I'm gonna bring you with me, okay?
Tragically, one child died a week later. Investigators say the fire started in the apartment of 51-year-old Tanya Kaylee Johnson. That's according to a report just released by Medford Fire Rescue and acquired by NBC5 News through a public records request.
Hey, help him find the parents.
Roughly 3 hours before the fire started, a neighbor told investigators Johnson's apartment door was wide open. Inside, she said a heavy-set person was sitting on a chair, but Johnson wasn't home.
We can definitively say we know Tanya left at this time and was not there between that time the night before and when the fire was discovered.
Johnson had been hit by a car earlier that night on South Pacific Highway, the accident leaving her in a coma for several months.
There was extensive damage in the apartment.
Deputy Fire Marshal Steve Park says Medford Fire Rescue learned the fire started in Johnson's living room. It quickly spread from her apartment to others, resulting in more than $700,000 in damage. But after analyzing things like her furnace, microwave, and more, investigators couldn't determine what sparked the flames.
And none of them rose to that level of probability ahead of the others.
2 months later, and finally out of a coma, investigators paid Johnson a visit.
Understandably, some gaps in her timeline.
Johnson told them she went back to her apartment that night only to discover her ex-husband inside. She says he assaulted her, and when she regained consciousness, she escaped out the front door. Johnson says they got into a fight on the sidewalk and then he forced her into a car. That was Johnson's last memory, but she was clear with investigators. She told them she would never start the fire and do anything to harm her cats inside the house. Medford police say surveillance video shows her walking alone and in a calm fashion towards the highway before the accident, to which Johnson said she didn't remember.
It's her truth. That's what she remembers as having happened that night.
After an extensive 3.5-month investigation, the cause of the fire, quote, remains undetermined pending new information for consideration becoming available, end quote.
Medford Police Department, hey, your building's on fire.
While there are many unanswered questions, what happened in Johnson's apartment after she left still puzzles investigators.
Who knows what all happened or didn't happen inside of that apartment during that 7 to 8 hour window.
4 months later, the trauma of what many experienced that night isn't easily forgotten.
Everybody's taking it one day at a time. Neighbors are all taking it one day at a time.
And that impact goes well beyond Cedar Tree apartment residents. 5-year-old Olivia Chapman, a student at nearby Orchard Hill Elementary, will forever be remembered in the hearts of those who knew and loved her.
You just take a deep breath and say, I miss you, Olivia. And she's a little angel watching over us now.
With the fire's cause undetermined, investigators say the case is still open. If you have any information, you're urged to contact police. In Medford, Amanda Rose, NBC5 News.